Beautiful human being, what is up? Welcome to another episode of Soul Speaks with Spack. In today's episode, I have not got a topic that I'm here to teach. There is no agenda. This episode is going to be real. It's going to be raw. It's going to be uncut. It's going to be honest. And it's going to be about me and my story. And my intention with this episode is to lay down my sword, is to take off the armor, is to put down the mask, the label, the identity of mentor and coach, and all of these labels that to me can feel really limiting and restrictive sometimes. And I feel as though the more I attach myself to these kind of identities and labels, the less authentic I am. And today's intention is to just let it flow wherever we need to go. I'm also going to be revealing perhaps some dark truths about the personal development and healing space in the spiritual world. And yeah, I mean, obviously these are my truths, what I have observed. And just because I deem it to be true from my own perspective does not mean that it has to be true for you. In fact, that's a perfect place to begin. Is that I can often come on and share certain ideas and topics and act like I know it all, or that I have it all figured out. And the paradox is, the more that I seem to figure out and think that I know, the more I realize how little I really know. And that's the paradox. So this is why I invite you to be wary of the content that you see online. Don't take every single thing that you see online to be truth, because it's not. Even the stuff that I put out there, I do my best to be as honest and truthful and authentic and transparent with who I am and where I'm at. And I do my best to not come across as though I've got it all figured out, because, hey, I'm on my journey as well. And often this label, or this identity of being a coach and a mentor, creates some tension and some discomfort, some resistance within my being. Because, for example, when I'm feeling super triggered, if I'm feeling angry, if I'm feeling frustrated, if I'm feeling anxious and overwhelmed, there's a voice internally that says, hey dude, you're meant to be the one that's got it all figured out. You're meant to be the mentor and the coach and the strong one. You know, suck it up and get on with it. No, it doesn't work like that. I am a human being. I'm a brother. I'm a son. I'm a lover. I'm a human. That's who I am. I'm not a freaking god. I'm not a teacher. I'm not a guru. I'm me. I'm me. And ultimately, my goal when I first set out with creating content was to share experiences from my journey, share insights from my own journey, share stories from my own journey. And little by little, I started to embody more of this identity of being a mentor. And don't get me wrong, I love to help and support people. I love seeing my clients achieve these incredible breakthroughs and go on these powerful transformative journeys. And what I do and what I try my best to do is to make it clear to my clients that I am not here to tell you how to live your life or what you should do. My ultimate goal is to help you dissolve the internal blockages that are holding you back from being who you really are. And I had a client earlier today say a word that I immediately picked up on and corrected her on in a loving way. And she said, I'm excited to fix myself. And I said, no. And this reminds me of a moment when I was in Austin, Texas, and I was surrounded by incredible master coaches. And one in particular, Preston Smiles, he said a quote, a saying, and it went something along the lines of this: we are all unique emanations, divine representations of the Most High. Call that God, universe, source, spirit, Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, Allah, whatever you want to refer to it as, the great encompassing, the thing that connects you and I, the thing that connects each and every one of us and everything. The unfathomable, the ineffable. And so when my client earlier today said, I can't wait to fix myself, I said no. Because fixing something implies that something is broken. And to say that I or you need to be fixed is to imply that God made a mistake, is to imply that there is something wrong with us. And that's not true, at least again, from where I stand, based on my level of awareness. It may feel true for you, but I truly believe that it is not true. And whether you agree with that or not, that's up to you to use your own discernment. And this is another key thing that I invite you to start utilizing is your own discernment. What do I mean by own discernment? Discovering what feels true for you. And when I say feel, I mean feel, because you can intellectualize as much as you want. You can read as many books, you can listen to as many podcasts, you can watch as many YouTube videos as you want. But until you really feel something on a bodily level, like that feels true for me, it's all kind of just hearsay. It's all kind of just mind-based. And that's not wrong. But for me, my greatest lessons have come through my own personal experiences. And it's not until I get out of this personal experience and I reflect on that experience, I'm like, holy, I did that. Did that really happen? In the moment, I can't take the lesson. I can't see the bigger picture because I'm in it. But when I get beyond that, it's like, whoa, I did that. And I have many examples of this. One in particular is when I was living in Costa Rica and I met an incredible community based at the Living Library in Costa Rica. And I stumbled across this community in the most profound and magical way. And it is a story that I'll save for another day. However, I met this incredible community and I had the opportunity to end up living with them and working alongside them and connecting with them. It felt like they were literally my soul family, long lost brothers and sisters who I was able to just connect with. And it was a beautiful experience. But they invited me on a week-long retreat. It was called the Jaguar Retreat, the Path of the Jaguar. And Chris Norris, the incredible founder of the Living Library, beautiful man. Honestly, so much respect for Chris. Thank you, Chris. He invited me on this retreat, the Path of the Jaguar. And the idea behind the Path of the Jaguar is that we were to embody the energy of a jaguar. And 10 of us men went on a hike deep into the jungle. And on this particular day, we experienced every single terrain and season possible. Hiking through the middle of the jungle, torrential rain, mud up to my knees, slipping into the mud, it felt like quicksand. Then we would come out onto this big open part of land outside of the jungle, and it was dry, hot sun. And it was such a beautiful hike, and it was a full day hike, and we ended up spending the night sleeping in a cave. And inside this cave, there was a huge waterfall dumping over the edge, over the side of the cave. And it was one of those moments that was a pinch yourself kind of moment. As we walked into this cave, there was a group of at least 50 people there cheering us in, welcoming us in. They were cheering us on like we'd just done some huge quest. I mean, we had, but I just wasn't expecting anyone to be there. Chris told me that we were going to spend a night sleeping in a cave, and my mind, all it could picture is us huddled up in some cave with a little fire. But literally, we walked into this cave. There is a huge waterfall dumping over the edge, and it was paradise. It was a little piece of paradise. Like we were just hiking through the jungle for several hours, and all of a sudden we end up in this cave with a huge big waterfall dumping over the side, and there's all of these beautiful souls in there cheering us on, like playing music. There's a fire going. I can smell the fresh food that's been prepared. And Chris, the absolute legend, had organized all of this. He'd organized the local community to come and set up a feast and welcome us in. And we spent the night sleeping in this cave. We had a beautiful song circle. We ate delicious food. And it wasn't until a couple of days after the hike and that experience that I learned and reflected and I guess integrated the lessons from that experience and just thought, oh my God, like I would never have had the opportunity to meet these incredible people and go on this hike if I didn't initially follow that inner calling. And if you've listened to my previous episodes, I think it's on episode 1, I speak about how I actually met this group of people. And I'm not going to repeat the story now because it's an in-depth story. But I was staying at an Airbnb that was close to this property. And one morning after doing a meditation, and in this meditation, visualizing and feeling into myself meeting a like-minded community, I heard these big, deep drums, and I could hear that they were close. And I followed the sound of these drums, and this is where I met this incredible bunch of people, and they were getting ready to go into the Temescal. And for anyone that doesn't know what a Temescal is basically an indigenous sweat lodge. It's like an outdoor, handmade with natural materials sweat lodge, sauna. So it's this big dome-like structure made out of flexible wood, and it originated in Mexico, I believe maybe in Peru as well. And it's not always made out of wood, but this particular one was made out of flexible wood, and it was insulated with blankets and towels. And there's a huge big fire going. And inside the fire, there's these big volcanic stones that get red, red hot. And then they get carried into the center of the Temescal, and everyone gathers within the Temescal. And the women are on one side and the men are on the other side. And the idea with this is to balance the masculine and the feminine energy. And for me, being a pretty regular Aussie kind of dude, not having experienced many spiritual communities or anything of this nature, this was very left field for me at the time. And they welcomed me in. I just kind of walked into their space. And Chris, the guy that was holding the space, he saw me and he looked at me and his eyes were glowing. It was like he was vibrant and alive. He's like, man, welcome. Have you ever done Temescal before? And I'm like, what is Temescal? And next thing I know, I'm spending the next 7 hours sweating and singing and chanting and having fun and connecting with these incredible humans that I just met. And this came as a result of me following my inner calling. And to circle this back around to my point, it is so important to tune into your physical body, I believe. For me personally, me tuning into my physical body and being aware of the sensations that are moving through my body and being willing enough to be with the sensations, this for me has really helped on my journey of healing and personal growth, because I spent many years intellectualizing all of this personal development knowledge and reading every book there is and watching all the YouTube videos, but I hadn't lived yet. I hadn't had any life experience. And getting out there and traveling solo, it was life experience fast-tracked. It was incredible. And I actually say that solo travel for me was kind of a spiritual and personal growth journey within itself. And for me, solo travel is what actually helped me better understand myself. I felt as though traveling solo allowed me and encouraged me to embrace my inner child. Being in a new country where I have no idea where I am or who's around me, I don't know any of these people. I don't speak the language, and I just get to figure it out as I go. And that really enlivened my inner child. That really brought my inner child out. It was like I felt so free. No one is around. I don't know anyone here. I don't have to wear any masks. I don't have to pretend to be anyone. And it was a real opportunity for me to discover and meet who I really am beyond the labels and identities and masks. For me, solo travel has been such a pivotal part of my journey. And my solo travel journey really was not a typical holiday or vacation where you book a destination months in advance and you sip cocktails by the pool. My solo travel was booking a one-way flight to the US with no plan beyond that. And I lived in the US for 3 months. I hopped over to Costa Rica. I lived in Costa Rica for 6 months. And then I took a total 180 and I flew to Spain, and I spent a week with a bunch of incredible coaches from all around the world at Mike's gym in Marbella. We trained 3 times a day in the hot Spanish heat. This was wild, coming out of the jungle after being there for 6 months into this hot, dry Spanish heat, training 3 times a day. And then together at the end of the week, we completed the toughest obstacle course in the whole of Europe at Mike's gym in Marbella, or one of the toughest obstacle courses. And this was an incredible experience within itself. And then beyond that, I traveled a little bit more of Spain. And then I ended up practically living in Portugal for over 12 months. And in between, I came back home and I visited my family here in Australia. And for me, solo travel was incredibly powerful. And I would have never done this before. Growing up, I was a very shy, introverted, insecure kind of teenager. I'm the eldest of 3 boys. I've got 2 younger brothers, and my younger brothers are incredible young men. We love each other very much. We're all very unique, and we have some similarities as well. But growing up, being the oldest of 3 boys, I didn't really feel like I had a role model. And my parents were both great role models for me. They're incredible parents. However, in terms of like an older brother, I didn't feel like I had that. And I guess I felt like I had to have it all together. And I felt like I had to be, or I got to be. It's actually a gift. A positive, healthy role model for my brothers. And I believe that I have been. And at the same time, in 2016 and 2017, in my kind of late teens, early 20s, these were some of my darkest years, where I was on a warpath of destruction. And I pretended like I didn't care about anything or anyone, especially myself. But deep down, I cared a lot. And I've always known that I've got a pure heart, a heart of gold. But growing up, I really didn't understand who I was or why I was here or what was going on. And yeah, I became really, really disconnected from myself. And I experienced a few different traumatic incidents when I was a kid, and it's nothing life-changing. It's nothing compared to many experiences that people tend to have out there. But for me, I feel like I became very inward focused. My parents sent me to an all-boys school, a Catholic school, a private school, and very early on, I was told that this is a good boy and this is a bad boy, and cut your hair above your collar and pull your tie up, pull your socks up, put your blazer on, and be a good boy. And so I figured that, the best way for me to get attention and to be loved and accepted is to just be a nice boy, to be a good boy. So every parent-teacher interview, my parents would hear from my teachers that Jake's a really great student. He's a nice boy, but he's distracted and he distracts others. And my grades early in my school years started off pretty good, and they slowly declined as I got older and older, and I started to rebel, and I started to hate this idea of being a good boy and being put in such a box. And so I started to break out of the box. And when the summer school holidays would roll around, I'd cut a mullet into my hair, I'd dye my hair blonde, I'd do all of these things. And then when school would go back after the summer holidays, I'd have to tidy up my hair and pretend like I was a good boy again. As I got into year 9 and year 10, my parents began to threaten to pull me out of this private school that they were paying a lot of money for. And at the time I said, yeah, pull me out. Like I'm over this anyway. I don't want to be here. I don't want to wear this stupid school uniform anymore. I want to be around girls. And I rebelled. I had that kind of attitude. I kind of thought deep down that they wouldn't actually pull me out. And as it turned out, getting to the end of year 10, my grades hadn't picked up anymore. I hadn't taken them seriously, and they decided to pull me out. And at that point, when they pulled me out, I was really upset because I wanted to stay. By that point, I decided that, hey, I don't want to leave this school. I want to stay here. Like, my mates are here. I want to be here. And in this particular school, I was a part of what I would consider the quote unquote cool group, the rugby boys. I was a rugby boy. I was hanging out with the tough boys, the strong boys, and I was one of the smaller kids. I had a growth spurt very late in life. And in terms of size, I couldn't compete, except I had a big heart and I was quick, I was fast, and I was pretty tough out there on the field. But in terms of size, everyone was far bigger and taller and stronger than me. So that became one of my insecurities, is that I'm skinny, I'm pale, I'm weak, and I don't like the way that I look. So my parents pulled me out of this private school that they were paying a heap of money to send me to, and they've put me into a public college. And this is a sports college, and these 2 years is where rugby predominantly became my main focus. I was a part of this talented sports program playing rugby, so we got to travel interstate throughout Australia playing. And at the same time, this new school was so much more relaxed. They didn't really care whether I turned up to class or not. And it took me a while to understand this. And I realized that I could get pretty good grades without putting in too much of an effort. And so little by little, my amount of care for this particular school and finishing college in a good way just deteriorated. I didn't really care. And I started hanging out with what you could consider, or what my parents would consider and refer to as, the wrong crowd. I was hanging out with the wrong crowd. The crowd that does burnouts in the back car park at lunchtime and after school. The crowd that goes out and takes drugs on the weekend. The crowd that smokes a bit of weed here and there and drinks alcohol. And so this is when I started experimenting with alcohol and different drugs. And then I finished year 11 and 12, and I started full-time work as a barber. I went straight into a full-time job, because throughout year 11 and 12, I started cutting my mate's hair, and I started becoming quite good as a barber. And then one of the local barbers, they hired me, and it was a pretty cool place to work. And I gave up the rugby. I gave up my sport because it was just too much with the full-time work. I decided to give it up. And I knew that at that time I needed something to keep me active and keep me moving. And that's when I got into the gym. And to begin with, I got into the gym because I felt skinny. I felt deeply uncomfortable and insecure in my body. I didn't like the way that I looked. And I started training at the gym through this really unhealthy, lack-focused lens. And because of this, I was never satisfied. I was never fulfilled. There was always somewhere else to get to. There was always somewhere else to arrive. And when I arrived at that goal, whether it was this bench press number, I was still unsatisfied. I was unhappy. And I wasn't building muscle anywhere near as fast as I wanted to. And I was noticing the other guys that were going to the gym at the time, they were building muscle far quicker than I. And I was like, what's their secret? What are they doing that I'm not doing? I was following the advice of bodybuilding.com and this bodybuilder and that bodybuilder and this YouTube influencer, and I was eating a high protein diet. I was smashing weight gainers. I was smashing chicken and broccoli and brown rice and tuna, and I was eating every 2 hours. I was literally force feeding myself to try and gain weight because I wanted to bulk up and be big. But it wasn't really for me. I mean, it kind of was for me, but it was more for the approval of others. I wanted others to think that, hey, this guy's strong and confident and he's got it all together. And I guess I didn't really know this at the time. It wasn't until I've kind of grown beyond that I've been able to reflect back and notice that was the energy behind my actions. But because I wasn't growing as quickly as I wanted to, I wasn't bulking up as quickly as I wanted to, I was kind of willing to try anything. And I started chatting to this guy at the gym, and he introduced me to steroids. And I'd heard of steroids. I knew what steroids were, but I had no idea how to use steroids. And He ended up selling me some steroids. I ended up buying these steroids, and I started using them, having no idea what on earth I was doing. I continued to become more disconnected from my body. And at the same time, every single weekend, I'm going out partying, I'm drinking alcohol, I'm taking drugs. Then through the week, I'd be working at the barber, I'd be eating chicken and broccoli and brown rice and force feeding myself and trying to gain weight, going to the gym after every day at work, smashing myself in the gym, lifting heavy weights, spending hours in the gym, and still not really seeing the results that I wanted to see. And my face started to get pimply and swollen. It was like my face was blowing up. My arms were blowing up. My body was blowing up, but it wasn't in an aesthetically pleasing way. And it was, of course, to do with the steroids, but it was also, of course, to do with just my volatile approach to life. And I was deeply disconnected and uncomfortable in my body. I broke out. I had acne all over my face. I learned to repress all of my emotions. I grew up in the environment where big boys don't cry. You got to suck it up, get on with it. Don't cry, because to cry is weak. That's soft, and big boys don't cry. And this belief was instilled within me, and because of this, I never understood what emotions even were. I never understood what it meant to feel my emotions, let alone talk about my emotions. It was something that was never spoken about. Things would annoy me. Things would piss me off. I'd be triggered in different ways, and I'd kind of hold onto it. I would bite my tongue, as my mum would say. And I would hold on, literally like clench and contract and hold on. And what I never realized until more recently is that holding on to those emotions, it's not like they just magically disappear and go away. No, they actually get stored in the body. So there would come a moment where I would explode and yell and be in this roid rage kind of energy and just say hurtful things to people that I actually care about, things that I didn't actually mean. And then afterwards, I would feel a deep sense of shame and guilt for acting in such a way. But like, what the fuck was that? Am I a monster? What is wrong with me? Was that really me? And the more I progressed down this journey of healing, the more that I started to understand that all of these heavy emotions are also an aspect of my human experience. I believe that we came here to feel it all. Why on earth would we be able to feel anger, sadness, grief, rage, if we weren't supposed to feel that? And this is why you hear people say, without the darkness, there can be no light. And this is why I am learning on my journey to embrace all emotions, to embrace all feelings, and actually to see them as sensations that are pulsating through my body. Because here's the thing, growing up, I remember hearing my mum say to me, and she had pure intentions. I don't blame her in any way. I know that she has pure intentions. You have a real nasty streak about you, Jake. You can get really angry, or you can be an angry boy. You are an angry boy. And I remember ruminating over this. And this became a part of my identity in an unhealthy way. Like I was really ashamed of the fact that I had this nasty streak and that I could be an angry boy. And then those moments where I would explode and I would get extremely triggered, this whole cycle would be reinforced. Like, oh yeah, you're the fucking angry guy. You're the one that just can't control your temper, right? This idea about control. You must control your temper. And this makes sense, okay? It makes sense. But again, us human beings, I believe, are so attached to this idea of control to the point where it becomes an illusion. And the way that I see anger is like a lion in a cage. And if you were to get in the cage with that lion, would you try and control that lion? No, you wouldn't. That lion would eat you alive. So this is why I believe that anger is not to be controlled. Anger is to be felt and experienced and channeled. And that might sound a little bit esoteric. And to me, the most practical way that I've learned to do this is to notice when I am triggered, to feel the anger, to feel that energy pulsating through my body, to notice my feet in the earth, to notice my feet on the ground, to notice my breath, deepen my breath into my belly, and to simply observe, to see and notice all of the stories that are going on in my mind. And say, for example, if I am feeling angry towards one of my family members or my partner, this is then an opportunity for me to take some space, for me to say, hey, I'm feeling triggered right now. I'm feeling overwhelmed right now. And I'm going to take 10 minutes to get outside and walk and be with this and come back and communicate in a level-headed way. And that right there is life-changing. That right there for me is an absolute game changer. Because in the past, I would just yell and scream and punch and it's like just get angry, just let that energy out in that way. And this is why I say it is to be felt and experienced and channeled and moved through the body and understood. And now I see my body as an incredible teacher. I see my body as my friend. My body is my ally. My body is my life vessel. My body is this vehicle that I get to experience and move through this life with. And that's a freaking beautiful gift. And for me, I used to hate my body. I used to think my body was small and skinny and lanky and pale and weak and all of this. And now I love my body. I've accepted my body, and acceptance was the first piece of that journey. To be aware that, hey, this is my body. This is the body that I've come here in. And now I get to accept that. In fact, let me embrace that. This body can move and bend and twist in so many ways. And this is why I'm so glad to not train in a gym anymore, because I feel like those machines can be so limiting and restrictive. And this is why now I love to train outside and use gymnastic rings, because it's so freeing. And it's challenging too. Bodyweight training pulls me into my body. It encourages me and challenges me to develop and enhance my mind-muscle connection, which helps me build muscle far more efficiently. It helps me lengthen and stretch and flex my muscles far more effectively as well. What I realized when I was in the gym is that I was so disconnected. I didn't have that mind-muscle connection. And this is very likely why back then I wasn't growing muscle anywhere near as fast as anyone else, because I didn't understand how to properly recruit and fire up my muscles. And so bodyweight training has really taught me how to be in my body and connect to my body and lengthen and strengthen my body. And that is why I love bodyweight training, and for many other reasons, because I don't need to spend money on a gym membership. I don't need to be in a big box, artificially lit sweat box anymore. I can be outside. I can have the sun on my skin. I can be bare feet, and I can still build my body in a way that is actually fun. And that's pretty freaking cool. I've got my water here with my Celtic sea salt. It's a nice hydration. It's been so funny to see my progression throughout my journey, because during those days in my late teens and early 20s, like I said, throughout the week, I was working at a barber shop for a period of time, and then I got a job working with the government, working behind a desk as an office jockey, desk jockey. And then my weekends would consist of drinking Friday, Saturday night, sometimes Sunday night as well, partying right through the weekend, and coming to Monday morning and hating my life, thinking, what on earth am I doing here? Questioning every single part of my existence. And then I would punish myself by eating tasteless, dry chicken with microwavable brown rice and this pathetic garden salad. And I was doing it because I wanted to build muscle and look a certain way. And I would eat every couple hours, just force feeding myself. Even when I wasn't hungry, I would force myself to eat because I wanted to gain weight. I didn't want to be skinny. I was scared of being skinny. And this mentality was so unhealthy because it completely destroyed my relationship to food. And fast forward to today, I don't drink alcohol. I don't take drugs. I don't party on the weekends. I spend most of my time creating content, helping clients, connecting with my girlfriend, being with my family. And I drink water, filtered water with Celtic sea salt. It's so funny how I've changed. And the thing is, there was a period of time where I reflected back on this younger version of me, and I would feel a great deal of shame, and I'd think, man, you were a fucking shipwreck back then. But nowadays, I got nothing but love for that younger version of myself, because he knew no better. He was doing the best that he could with the level of awareness that he had at the time. And I got nothing but love for him, because young Jake was young Jake. And if young Jake wasn't young Jake, then Jake right now may be very different. So that is why all versions of me are valid and beautiful in their own unique way. And I'm sure that this version of me right now, I might look back on this version of me in 10 years from now and think, what a fucking loser. No, but listen, it's been a beautiful journey. It really has. And as you can tell, this podcast episode has gone in many different directions, and there's still more that I have to say. I've got a lot to share today. And what's been prominent for me more recently is this scramble-like energy, this need to rush through life, like there's somewhere to arrive. And this is what I refer to as survival mode in a lot of my content. And the interesting thing is that I can embody this energy sometimes. I can get sucked into this limiting pattern, this shipwreck. It's like I've got to get somewhere to finally say that, hey, what I've done is enough, and I can actually be happy now. And I can feel like I've made it. And all of that is an illusion. And the more focused that I am on arriving somewhere and working so hard towards a goal, the less present I am, the less connected to this moment right now I am. And what I observe when I'm in this survival mode, scramble-like energy, is that I'm so in my mind. I'm so living through the lens of fear. It is all encoded with fear and lack and limitation and scarcity. And for me, the antidote to this has been coming back into my body, has been breathing deeply and exhaling fully. And this is a real art, because the more that I am in my body, the more present I am. I believe that my body always is in the present moment. My body is like an anchor that pulls me into the present moment. It is inviting me to be here now. And the more time that I spend up in my mind trying to control things and figure it all out, or ruminating over my past, or worrying about the future, the less in my body I am, the less present I am. And my family can feel that. My girlfriend can feel that. And it doesn't make me any more effective. If anything, me spending more time in my mind trying to control life has the total opposite effect. It pushes people away. It limits me. It leads to me feeling anxious and overwhelmed. And I've been listening to an amazing man more recently named Chris Bale, and I love his perspectives. Yeah, they're very awakening for me. They're very resonant for me. And what Chris speaks about is this idea of being more embodied, and this idea that I am not my emotions. My emotions, in fact, are a reflection of my body. My emotions are my body's way of communicating with me. And if I am feeling anxiety, if I'm feeling anxious, it is typically my body crying out for me to reconnect with it and breathe and be here. Be like, hey, what's up? Like, hand on my heart, hand on my belly, breathe deeply in through the nose, from the base of my spine up to my brain, and then exhale fully through pursed lips. And then when I think I've exhaled out all of my air, I'm going to push even more air out, because there is more carbon dioxide to come out of those lungs. Let me tell you that. What I've realized is that us human beings, myself included, are constantly consuming and intaking more information, more books, more podcasts, more YouTube videos, more social media, more food, more conversations with colleagues and bosses and family and all of that. But very rarely do we focus on the outputs and letting it all go. And that's problematic, because what Chris speaks about is that the more we are intaking and consuming information, the more our energy is leaking. And this is a really interesting topic and concept for me, because in the spiritual community, you hear people talk about raise your vibration, high vibe, love and light, all of this nonsense BS that gets thrown around. The thing about being high vibe and raising your frequency that Chris has really shifted my perspective on is this idea of plugging the energetic leakages. And one of the things that he said that really landed with me is that we leak the most energy through our eyes and through our mouth. So what does that mean? Talk less and spend more time with your eyes closed. That plugs a lot of energy leaking out. And the way that he describes it is your energy can like fill up from the bottom up towards your brain, the more energy you hold in. So I believe in relationships, the real art and the real gift is how much energy can I hold in my physical body? How embodied can I be? How calm and connected and present can I be in my body to all of the sensations, the energy pulsating through my body? How connected to that can I be? That to me is a freaking art, an art that I am learning to practice. And like anything, it is a practice, because very often my mind loves to think, my mind loves to commentate my whole life. And I have learned and am learning to cultivate a healthy relationship between my mind and my body. My mind and my body are my friends. We are connected. And the more time that I spend in my body, the happier my mind seems to be. And I am learning to create this cohesive relationship between my mind and my body. And this is an art within itself. So this is one of the reasons why I believe personal development can be really misleading. People out there say you need to shift your mindset and think positive thoughts and repeat affirmations in the mirror and journal more and meditate more. And these are all fantastic, okay? They're great. However, I believe it's important to ask the question, well, why do I have this negative self-talk? What is the repetitive story and the repetitive pattern that keeps playing out in my life? What is going on? And what do I need in that moment? And what I'm learning is that more often than not, it is my body crying out to me that, hey, it is time to reconnect. It is time to decompress. It is time to stop taking in so much information and so much energy. And it is time to let some of that energy go. And for me, the most practical way that I've learned to do this, there's a few ways that I'll share. The most practical way that really anyone can tap into right now is taking a deep extended exhale out the mouth. So what I notice very often is that I am constantly taking information in. I'm constantly breathing in and inhaling more, but very rarely am I fully exhaling and letting all of that air go. So what I'm going to do right now, if you would like to join me, is I'm going to take a deep breath in through my nose, and then I'm going to take a deep extended exhale out through my mouth. And on the exhale, I'm going to focus on relaxing the muscles in my body. In fact, together, let's take 3 deep breaths and just notice how you feel as you're breathing and after you breathe. Notice how you feel right now in your body. Is there tension? Is there tightness? Is there discomfort? Is there stagnation? And then after this, notice how you feel. So like I said, a deep breath in through the nose. And as you breathe in through the nose, I invite you to envision a ball of energy coming up from the base of your spine, up into your brain. And then as you exhale, think about your exhale coming down the front of your body. And as you exhale, consciously relax all of the muscles in your body. Exhale fully. And when you think that you've exhaled all of your air out, exhale some more, because I guarantee there is more air that can come out. So together, if you feel called, let's take a few deep breaths, starting in a few seconds. In 3, 2, 1. Now, if you had the eyes closed, gently open up the eyes when you're ready. And for me, that was really subtle. That was 3 deep conscious breaths. And I feel more connected. I feel more calm just with that. And that's literally as simple as it can be. It's not rocket science. It's not crazy. It's not this method and hack and all of these nonsense terms. It just is. Your body is always here. Your breath is always here. And it's more often than not a matter of reconnecting and dropping in. And this is why I love to see and visualize my breath as the bridge between my mind and my body. And I visualize my body as an anchor that pulls me into the here and now. It pulls me into this present moment. And this present moment is where I long to be. Even when my mind believes that I'm going to be happier in some distant timeline in the future that doesn't even exist yet, my body still wants to be here. So remember, I am not your guru. I am not your mentor. I am not your coach. You are your guru. You are your mentor. You are your healer. You are your coach. It is an inside-out game. It is not an outside-in game. My goal with these podcasts, with all of my content, everything that I put out there, is to share my heart, share my energy, share my story with you. And if that illuminates and activates something within you, that's fantastic. That is amazing. I love that. So, my intention moving forward is to share more of my heart, more of my energy, more of my truth with you. And on a personal note, my intention is to spend more time, invest more time being present, being in my body, and embracing and dancing with and playing with my inner child. And also just allowing myself to be grateful for who I am and where I am right now. And this is not to say that I'm complacent and passive. No, this is to say that I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. Life couldn't be any other way. And I'm still kicking goals. I'm still working towards a powerful, exciting vision in the future. And this for me is the gift. Now, this episode has been perhaps a long one. I actually have gotten lost. I've just been talking and sharing, and I've kind of forgotten the fact that I'm sitting here recording a podcast. And the interesting thing with this one is this particular episode, this is the third time that I've recorded this. The first time I sat here for well over an hour and recorded this episode. And then when I went to connect the audio and the video on my computer, I realized the whole time I was shooting in slow-mo. And in that moment, there was one part of me that wanted to throw my laptop through the window. But the more prominent aspect of me in that moment didn't even care. It was like, hey, I shared my heart. I shared my story. I practiced speaking and sharing. And that's a great gift. And then the second time I attempted to record this episode, the mic that I was using, I guess, was not plugged in properly. So the audio component didn't work. And now I'm going to trust that this third time, everything's worked perfectly. And even if it hasn't, I'm here still. Life still is going to continue unfolding. For me, as cliche as it may sound, it is not about the end destination. It is about the journey and who I am being right now. And ultimately who I'm becoming in the process. And that's a beautiful journey to be on. So my invitation to you is to share anything that resonated with you from this episode. If you feel like you want to reach out, reach out. If you have any questions, reach out. And if you've made it this far through this episode, I want to congratulate you for being an absolute legend. I appreciate you more than you may ever know. And this is really a beautiful venture, as I would say, to be on. So thank you for tuning in, and I will see you in the next one. Have an amazing day.